The Easter Sunday bomb attacks that left 290 people dead and hundreds more injured in Sri Lanka were carried out with the help of an international network, according to government officials.
We do not believe these attacks were carried out by a group of people who were confined to this country. There was an international network without which these attacks could not have succeeded.
Special forces also blew up a van near one of the targeted churches. Witnesses reported it had been parked there since the explosion on Sunday.
We heard a loud bang and we fainted. That's all I remember.
We heard a loud explosion and everything collapsed. We managed to protect the children. But when I came here, I found out that my son-in-law and my son had died.
I wish to express my heartfelt solidarity with the Christian community affected while it was at prayer, and with all the victims of such cruel violence.
Well, the government temporarily blocked social media in the wake of the attack, saying that it was done to stop the spread of false information. Well, let's discuss this issue now with a couple of guests. Let's bring in Vicente Partal, who's the founder of the VilaWeb news site and board chair of the European Journalism Centre, and Derrick Broze is founder of the Conscious Resistance Network. That's an independent media group. Welcome to you both. Vicente, you first. You have, as I understand, you were one of the very first people to become an avid internet user. You're very experienced in the way that it's adapted and been changed over the years. Do you think that it is now a force that's being used to spread hate in incidents like this rather than bringing people together?
Well, this is not exactly the situation, because as we have seen today, the decision of the Sri Lankan government has been adopted before anything happened in the social network. There has been any increase of hate speech in the networks before the decision of the Sri Lankan government. In some way, you can say this is a preemptive strike. And of course, this is because a lot of things are happening with the social networks all over the world, and more governments are concerned with what could happen if you allow the free use of these networks all over.
Derrick, just building off the back of that, how do you feel about the use of social media? If we think back to the Arab Spring, social media was considered to be such a positive force that it helped protesters coordinate their efforts. It's now being looked at as a negative role that's being played by the likes of Facebook. If we look at the Christchurch attack in New Zealand and now the fears of the authorities in Sri Lanka.
Well, you know, from my perspective, I think, as you said, the tool of social media over the last decade has been used in a number of great ways. You can look at the Arab Spring, you can look at the growth of the independent alternative media in the United States and really around the world. And in the last year or so, we've seen this move towards censorship. As your other guest said, now, you know, they want to prevent certain hate content or hate speech from spreading. And so even before it spreads, we're now starting to see actively suppressing of access to the internet, maybe access to Facebook, or threatening people, as is the case with New Zealand, with jail time or fines for possessing certain types of content or for merely watching videos and things of that sort. I do think that this is a shift in the way the governments of the world, as well as the tech companies and some of the media, are promoting and portraying social media. I have difficulty accepting that they are simply doing this out of the kindness of their hearts and out of to keep the people from having access to graphic content. I do think that it benefits governments of the world once they start censoring certain parts of the internet.
What do you think of that comment there, Vicente? Do you think this is governments looking after themselves as opposed to protecting members of the public?
Well, it is not clear, because first, the attacks happened without the intervention of any social media. That was a situation that is well known in Sri Lanka, a country that have a difficult relationship between different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, and the attacks that we have seen on Easter Sunday have nothing to do with the use of social media. But of course, what is happening all over the world, what happens, for instance, in New Zealand, that creates a sense of hysteria in some governments that want to prevent the hate speech to explode after one of these situations. The problem is that at the same time, you are preventing the people to communicate. For instance, in Sri Lanka, the use of WhatsApp or Facebook is very popular, and a lot of people cannot communicate with their own families using another tool. So when you close one of those social media, you are not just preventing the hate speech to happen, but you're creating a problem to your own population, and a problem that comes from a situation that in many cases it was not created by the social networks.
Derrick, so you both pointed out, the concerns here that, people are going to deny the freedom that they have to express themselves via social media in these scenarios. But there is that. I mean, we can't just say that the governments are making it up, can we? We have seen the darker side of humanity does emerge in the wake of terrorist attacks, and we saw it in Christchurch. People have been charged for reposting what was considered to be the offensive material that was the live streaming. It was a hateful, deliberate reposting of material in some cases. And even with the Notre Dame fire, we saw a lot of, positivity and condolences expressed, but we also saw people mocking the tragedy. So the negative element, it is a reality, isn't it?
I mean, sure, it's a reality, but I mean, I feel like I don't know if we have quite yet reached adulthood if people are so afraid of reading offensive things or angry, mean comments on the internet. I mean, anybody who has been involved in any sort of media creation, whatever type of content creation you do, whether writing articles, making music, broadcasting podcasts, you get really ignorant, hateful, sometimes ugly, despicable comments online. And I just, unfortunately, that is a part of the world that we currently live in. And there are people who, they do this anonymously. But I do think that once we start making that argument and say, well, because somebody is posting something offensive or something graphic, which, by the way, you can find things on the internet right now that are much more graphic than anything you can see in the New Zealand shooting video. You can see much more graphic things on Hollywood films and on, the nightly news, but those things are allowed to continue to be on the web. I think that this is really, for my take, the bigger picture is that this is various governments around the world, and we're seeing New Zealand, Sri Lanka, maybe we'll see it in the US and UK and elsewhere. They're taking the opportunity when they see the opportunity to seize more power of the internet. Yes, you can say, well, it's to stop, graphic content, it's to stop hateful content, and that exists. But hateful people exist whether or not the internet exists. So if we simply just stand by and say, I don't want to be offended, or I don't want to be, I don't want to see that type of content, so please take control of the internet or shut it down or block my access, I think that sets a dangerous precedent.
Vicente, as a journalist, I'm sure you can appreciate this, that now when there is a terrorist attack, floods of information come in, pictures, videos, comments and claims, and it's increasingly difficult to know just what is true. There's an awful lot of fake stuff that's put out, and I would make the argument that increasingly, deliberately, fake information is being spread now. How on earth do you try and organise, control these situations and filter the information?
But this is nothing different in the past. We have seen all the time people trying to create fake information about anything that happens even 1 century of years ago. It's nothing new for journalists. Journalists always do the same thing, contrast, check if this is real or not. So we can do the same job now using the social networks. In your previous question, if I may, there is one line that I think we can understand very easily. The very graphic videos of the attack in Christchurch. Of course, it is, I understand absolutely that both the New Zealand government, any government in the world, and the companies try to prevent these pictures to be uploaded to the social networks. And I agree that these pictures is not good for anyone to be shown. There is no one that can have can need this kind of so graphic material to understand how dangerous was the action, how criminal was this action. So I agree that this kind of pictures don't need to be shown in order to understand what is happening. But this is very different to what is happening now in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, is the government trying to prevent something that you don't know even if will happen. So it's crossing a line. It's a very different line. We journalists all over the world and all over the time has been dealing with the thing of how to show or how much you need to show something when it's a disturbing event, how much you need to show to your readers, to your in order they to understand the situation. But after that happens, trying to control before that happens, this is a big step. This is a major different situation that we are facing. And to my memory, I don't remember any situation before these Sri Lanka events when a government tried to control the social networks preemptive before something happens in the social networks.
Derrick, as I mentioned before, social media giants, the likes of Facebook, Twitter, I mean, they really expanded their number of users in the likes of the Arab Spring. That's where they picked up popularity. Now they're finding themselves switched off at the will of certain governments. What do they need to do to adapt to make sure that that isn't going to be happening to them in the future?
Well, I can speak from experience as somebody who has kind of grown up on social media and use it as an activist and as a journalist to spread information, and who has been involved with Facebook pages that have grown to millions of followers and that were deleted off of Facebook back in October in the Facebook purge, that these types of actions of censorship of the internet and social media, whether being done by governments or by the social media companies themselves, is only going to increase. We've seen it increasing over the last year. And I do think that the answer is for the people of the world, wherever you're listening from, to start to look for more decentralized alternative platforms that cannot be simply turned off by these companies. I mean, there are plenty of blockchain-based platforms out there that are not subject to the whims of Mark Zuckerberg or to the whims of the governments, and that can't just be simply erased. So I think that it's time for people to start realizing that by centralizing our communication through these platforms, through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through Instagram, and what have you, we are making it easier for anyone who wants to limit that conversation and to limit that communication, whether that's the spread, the video, graphic video, or to, prevent something bad from happening. Either way, as long as we're using those tools, we've already been shown that they will use them in a way to censor people if they choose to.
And Vicente, same question to you. What do you think the future is for social media if it's to adapt and to thrive and people are to retain those freedoms that they enjoy from them?
I agree with Derrick. I think that companies like Facebook are in a very bad shape because they are doing so many things wrong that it's very difficult that anyone support them. I'm not a fan of Facebook. I'm not a fan especially of Mr. Zuckerberg. I think that there will be new alternatives, decentralized alternatives that will allow the people to keep the power to present information, to discuss about the information, and not being controlled by big brothers kind of companies like Facebook it is. But that needs time. That needs that the people begin to use alternative apps to share the information. But I'm sure that that will happen sooner or later, because once you have the feeling that you are part of the conversation, and that's the big thing happening with the social networks, why you must say, okay, now I'm coming back to the time when only big media could speak. It's impossible. That will not happen.
Vicente, Thank you so much, and indeed to Derrick. Gentlemen, it's been great to get your input. An interesting conversation, I believe. Vicent Partal, my first guest, founder of Catalonia's VilaWeb news site, and Derrick Broze, founder of the Conscious Resistance Network. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.